Hello and welcome to the first of our European Parliament election updates. Britain went to the polls last Thursday, but the count began just a few hours ago so that results throughout the European Union could be known at the same time. The story of the night so far is that the Conservatives have made considerable gains, while Labour's vote is dramatically down. There are 87 seats across Britain. Tonight we'll discover the results in 76 of them, because the vote in Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland will be counted tomorrow. Here are the results so far. The Conservatives have 4 seats, Labour have 6, the Liberal Democrats 1. The other parties have yet to secure any seats. Neil Connery reports.
The first ever election conducted under proportional representation across the whole of the UK, but with less than 1 in 4 voters bothering to turn out, tonight's results reflect voter apathy when it comes to the European Parliament. The Conservatives have had a good night and are forecast to take the largest number of seats. Early indications show Labour suffering heavy losses. Their share of the vote could be down by as much as 15% on the general election.
Well, of course, we expected, as a result of the move to PR, to lose a considerable number of seats. That was an inevitability. We couldn't win as many as we've won before. So we'll wait and see what happens. The predictions are, of course, disappointing, but we'll wait and see what the final result is.
We did win the argument convincingly. In a sense, more significant than the results tonight is the fact that over the last 4 weeks, Labour tried to ignore the European election.
The Prime Minister needed to have taken a much stronger lead on Britain's role in Europe. He, as Prime Minister, was in a better position to do that. Now, fair enough, he also had to be taking a lead on Kosovo, which is taking up a lot of his time and attention. But there wasn't that lead given about Britain's future dependence on an effective place in Europe.
A disappointing night then for Labour, but one which offers comfort for the Conservatives. But all the parties' claims must be set against a poor turnout. Neil Connery, ITN.
Well, live now to our political correspondent Lauren Taylor, who's at the count at Alexandra Palace in North London. Lauren, it looks like a good night for the Conservatives.
Yes, it does very much look like the Tories' night. If the results that we had so far in the constituencies were part of a general election, it would be a Tory victory. Now, of course, it doesn't work like that because we're working under proportional representation and we don't yet have the full picture. But it certainly looks as though the Tories will have the biggest share of the vote, and that will be a huge blow for Labour to come second. The Liberal Democrats don't seem to have done as well as they had hoped. They were looking to try and get seats in double figures. They don't seem to be heading that way at the moment. But the people who could gain under the proportional representation system are the UK Independence Party and the Greens. They look as though they could be heading for their first seats in the European Parliament.
Now, how will the main parties at national level react?
Well, Labour is admitting that it does have a lot to do, but they're saying that if William Hague is painting this as a victory, he will certainly find that it's a very short-term victory. They're saying that Labour is stressing that the Tory party still has splits over Europe. Now, of course, the Conservatives are delighted, and they're simply claiming that they fought a good campaign and that they concentrated on the single currency mainly. The Liberal Democrats, it's disappointing for them, but they're obviously putting a brave face on it as well.
Thank you, Lauren. Well, as we've heard, the turnout for this election has been extremely low. Just 23% of people who were eligible to vote did so on Thursday. It was 36% at the last European parliamentary election, compared to a European average of 56%. Well, joining me now to discuss that and other issues raised is ITN's political analyst, Professor Colin Rallings. Professor Rallings, let's start straight away with that turnout, just so very low.
Appalling, really, in Britain, less than 1 in 4 voters. But of course, it's also down right across Europe. In both France and Germany, less than half of the electorate turned out, which is much lower than was the case 5 years ago. I think everywhere, really, there's scepticism about the European Parliament. Of course, the scandal over the actions of the commissioners a few months ago has rather put people off. They don't quite understand what the European Parliament does. And I think especially in Britain, but also across Europe too, the war in Kosovo directed a lot of people's attention, both the media and the politicians, away from the elections.
Now, this business of proportional representation, do you think that played its part too? People just couldn't or didn't think they would be able to understand the system.
Yes, the system actually is just as easy as the traditional system. You simply put a cross on the paper, albeit that the ballot paper was rather lengthy and wide this time. I think that maybe that was part of the reason. PR, of course, has advantages, and we'll see those as the results come in later tonight, is that the seats the parties will gain will reflect the votes they actually get. And I think that one of the interesting things that will happen, therefore, is that some of the smaller parties, not only the Lib Dems, but we also believe perhaps the UK Independence Party and even the Greens, may win seats. And, of course, they wouldn't have done so without PR. And in that sense, PR has added interest to these elections, certainly as far as the results are concerned.
Professor Colin Rallings, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's go to another part of the United Kingdom now. Our Scotland political correspondent Harry Smith is in Edinburgh. Well, Harry, the Conservatives there, of course, nationally, in the national elections, they do jolly badly, have done jolly badly. What about Scotland in this election, do you think?
Well, at this stage of the evening, it looks as if the Conservatives are doing very well here in Scotland as well. You see this board down there behind me now. Eventually, that will have the results of all 72 constituencies in Scotland. At the moment, it has, I think, 46. But this is how the parties look. The Conservatives are sitting on about 20% of the popular vote. That puts them in third place behind Labour, behind the SNP. But that could just be enough. Remember, this is a new system. That could just be enough to give them 2 seats in the European Parliament, representing Scotland. Now, considering they started the night with no seats, that's a considerable gain.
And now, what about the Nationalists? How are they likely to do?
They are very pleased with the way things are going. It is early days yet. They say they're very pleased. It's not sure. We know who the losers are in Scotland at the moment. That's the Labour Party. They're going to end up with perhaps 3 seats. Now, the Nationalists could end up on par with Labour with also 3 seats. On the other hand, they could end up with 2, with the remaining seat going to the Liberal Democrats. We won't know that until lunchtime tomorrow.
Harry Smith, thank you very much. Let's get an update of the latest results now. At present, the Conservatives have 9 seats, Labour have 10, Liberal Democrats have 2. The other parties have yet to secure any seats. That's all from the first of these special European election updates. We'll be back with the very latest at just after 1:30. Till then, goodbye.